Hey everybody, welcome to BFR Tuesday. I'm your host, Ed LaCara, and today we are going to be talking about BFR and a study that was recently released regarding its BFR's effect on motor unit recruitment. As we know, we use BFR in order to fatigue out type 1 fibers early with low load, which typically will not do, which allows us to tap into type 2 fibers, which are more prone to get increased in strength and size. So I'm going to share this study right now. I'm going to add a handout, drop it in here. And it's uploading now, so you can download it. What I have realized is many people are in practice at this time, and so I am putting these now on my YouTube channel. So if you don't mind subscribing and liking my YouTube channel, that's just at edlacara.com, and I'll put a little link here. I'll actually find the link and put that in. All right. So there's a link. Okay. Okay, so let's go to this. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, here we go. All right, so BFR alters motor unit behavior during resistance exercise. Fatela is the lead researcher out of Portugal, and I highlighted some things in here. The primary reason that I did this is I get a lot of questions about should BFR be done pre-exercise, and we do have a pre-workout, pre-exercise, pre-game technique that we do. We actually have a couple. For the most part, you can't go through a normal BFR protocol for strength or hypertrophy prior to activity, and the reason is that you'll get too much fatigue and decrease in torque of the joint that you're primarily affecting. So what this helped us to determine is, hey, what's too much? Like, we should not be doing 75 reps of BFR at 20% 1 rep max prior to activity, because it's going to make people too fatigued to go out and do their activity. The purpose of this study, how it alters the individual motor unit, recruiting low intensity exercise. This was done on healthy individuals, 26 to looks like 40, 75 reps, 20% 1 rep max. Here's something that's really important to take home, is that compared to low intensity exercise, force decrement was only seen after low intensity BFR exercise. Okay, so looks like they lost about 20% of their force decrement. So I want to make sure that I'm not pre-fatiguing people prior to high intensity exercise, especially like a game or practice, because probably not a good idea to not allow your glute to function very well. Probably not a good idea to pre-fatigue muscles prior to that type of activity. So I know there's a lot of people out there that are using BFR prior to exercise, but typically they're doing it with a cellular swelling protocol. They're not doing it as a fatigue protocol. And the other thing that they're doing is they might be just doing like 1 or 2 sets of 15. Now, I don't have any studies that I know of that are out there as a pre-exercise, purely anecdotal. But what people will tell me is that they like it. They like doing some of this stuff pre, because they feel warmed up they feel like things are firing and they feel better. And there's also that pain reduction component of BFR. So I've highlighted some things. If you're interested, you should take a look at this, how the 1 rep max was determined, how maximum voluntary contraction was determined, what their resistance exercise. So this was 5 sets of 15. Now we typically use 30, 15, 15, 15. We still use 75 reps, so it's very similar, but they're doing a 30-second rest in between. This was BFR set at 60% arterial occlusion pressure. So 60%, normally we'll use 60% for higher intensity exercise, like running, for example, because it's too much. 80% is too much at those higher intensities. So 60%, they did see a reduction in force, right? Force decrement by about 20%. And even though BFR exercise is effective for heightening the recruitment of motor units, it's also decreasing firing rates at lower firing rates. So I think this is a really good, to look at. Hey, we can get early recruitment of motor units, but we do not want to fatigue it, because otherwise we're going to lower force production. So let me kind of summarize my take home on this. And if you have other thoughts, please comment below so we can chat about it. So if we know that fatiguing tissue is going to reduce force production, we may want to do that in some situations. Like if I pre-fatigue my tricep and then I go do bench press, that might be good. And maybe doing that 5 by 15 with a 30-second rest in between with BFR prior to doing a bench press is good, because you're pre-fatiguing the smaller muscle, you're putting emphasis on the bigger muscle. That'd be cool. I'm totally down with that. Prior to, let's say, games or high intensity practice, meaning just regular practice, probably not recommended to early fatigue motor units. Not recommended. Okay, so what I would do instead is I would do 60% LOP, lower extremity, and I would do 2 sets of 15 reps. Or you could do cellular swelling, which shows no decrement in force production. And you don't have to do a full cellular swelling protocol, because you're not looking for protein synthesis. So you might do 5 minutes with 3-minute rest times 2 rounds. Might be enough. It might be enough to just kind of get some motor units recruitment and get people warmed up and ready to go. They were using the cellular swelling at Stanford with their women's soccer. They seem to like it there. The Detroit Lions tend to use lighter loads, like the 20%, only doing like 1 set, 2 sets prior to getting warmed up. And I think that makes sense. If we go too far, we're going to fatigue the tissue, which I don't think makes sense unless somebody can convince me otherwise. So the big take home is, yes, motor unit recruitment is increased with BFR compared to low intensity exercise. We're not recruiting higher level motor units during low intensity exercise, like using a TheraBand. Like we've known that, we've seen that now for a couple of years. This study kind of confirms it. If you want to get people kind of warmed up I would recommend what I put in the messages, either doing lower pressure, 60% in the lower extremity, 40% in the upper extremity, one, maybe 2 sets of 15 at about 20% one rep max, just very light. You definitely don't want to go to failure during those reps. They're going to be very light loads. And that's it. And then you let them go. Now you can, like I mentioned, if you want to pre-fatigue smaller muscle tissue, like a tricep or a bicep, prior to heavy compound exercises, so you can pre-fatigue those tissues, so that way you get more emphasis on the larger muscle group. That's a totally different story. We're talking about something totally different. I'm talking about prior to plyometrics, prior to a game, prior to some sort of high intensity practice. I don't think it's a good idea to pre-fatigue the tissue. This also helps me confirm that, hey, if I have somebody doing some light glute bridges and some monster walks with the band and other things, that's just a warm up. You're not reducing, you're not getting them fatigued. You might be recruiting a little bit motor unit recruitment, but you're not reducing torque as long as you keep the reps, sets, and load light. And I think you keep LOPs at the lower minimums, 60% lower extremity, 40% upper extremity. So hopefully that makes sense, and that is applicable. If you have any questions, please let me know. Like I said, I'm posting all these now on my YouTube channel, so you can go there to run the replay. If you have any questions, just comment below. Appreciate it, and I will see you next week.